This year, LEGO released the new Ninjago Dragon's Rising sets for Season 3. And while they were mostly good, there were a few decisions in the marketing for these sets that confused me a bit, so I just want to address them in this video. First of all, I want to address the topic of Storm Rider Sane. When the sets were first revealed, people were pleasantly surprised to find out that Sane was featured in the cover box for this wave. More specifically, Sane wearing his Storm Rider suit was featured in the cover of the box. People were happy about that at first, because it was the first time in years that Sane was featured in the cover of a wave for sets. But then, as more teasers, posters, and trailers were revealed, one thing became increasingly apparent. Sane was never featured wearing his Storm Rider suit anywhere. That was very odd, because why would you feature Sane's storm suit as the cover of the box art, just to then never have him in the show? Ninjago is no stranger to having non-canon ninja minifigures. That's not something new. It's frustrating, but it has happened before. The weird thing is having the ninja in the cover box art not appear in the show. This is literally the first time this happened in Ninjago history. There was one image that gave me hope that Sane's Storm Rider suit would be canon, which was this one, except that this one turned out to be the screenshot from the opening. And Sane does use his Storm Rider suit in the opening, but I highly doubt that the opening sequence can be considered canon material. And in all first 10 episodes of Season 3, which are the episodes that feature the sets from the wave which has Sane in the cover, Sane never used his Storm Rider suit. And I feel like the Storm Rider suits were handled very weirdly in Season 3 in general. Like, we actually only get to see 3 out of the 5 suits from this wave. And Lloyd's suit was only featured in 4 of the 10 episodes. I really don't understand why the ninja couldn't just start the season already wearing the storm suits, because I feel like the only suits that we really get to see shine are Kai and Nia's, because they were actually wearing them since episode 3, so they spend most of the season with these new suits. But as I've already said, Sane never wears his. Lloyd only wears his for 4 episodes, and Cole does wear his suit, but we all know he barely appears in part 1, so we didn't really get to see him do anything with it. I feel like I've been saying this in every video, but it's still the case, so I still have to keep saying it. I don't want to give any spoilers for Season 3 Part 2, but from the very first episode, in the ninja's first appearance, they are already wearing the new suits. And I guess this is a little bit of a spoiler, but not really. Sora is also wearing her new suit in her first appearance, even though she's away from the ninja. She's still wearing a suit that matches the rest of the ninja, because if they had waited for Sora to reunite with the ninja to give her her spectral suit, then her new suit would barely be in the show. Even though this time, she's the one in the cover art of the boxes. But they didn't do that. They gave her the new suit from the start, even if it didn't make a lot of sense story-wise. So why couldn't they have done the same thing with the storm suits? Why couldn't they all have been wearing them from the very beginning? If that had been the case, Sane's storm suit would actually have been in the show, but I don't understand why that's not the case. Anyway, just another reason why part 2 is way better than part 1. And I guess I do have to acknowledge that Sane does wear his Storm Rider suit in part 2, but he's barely in part 2. And the sets that featured him in the box art were for part 1. So he was never in any episode that tied in with the sets that had him in the cover. And he was barely in the episodes that don't feature him anymore. Another thing about the marketing of Season 3 Part 1 that I found very weird was the odd decision to make Jay have a secret identity. With secret in very heavy quotation marks, because the truth is that his identity had nothing secret about it. Of course, Jay was featured as Rogue in the sets, and he was wearing that new hat piece which is specifically designed to hide the face of the minifigure. But when you purchase the set, you can just remove the hat and the mask, and you can very clearly see that it's Jay. And still, I had to put up with all the writers acting as if saying Rogue is Jay was a huge spoiler that they weren't allowed to say. A mystery without a mystery is just empty. Everyone already knew Rogue was Jay from the very beginning, so there was no point on pretending like it was a big reveal. I understand that story-wise, Eren couldn't have known that Rogue was Jay, because if he had known, he could have just asked him about his parents and he would have stopped following Raz. But we, as the audience, already know who he is, so I really don't understand why they kept insisting on playing dumb when asked about Rogue's identity. Also, did you guys realize that Rogue never had the lightning marks on his suit in part 1 until he used his elemental power for the first time? and then they just spontaneously appeared. Now, I did want to talk about the topic of Jay gaining back his memories. This part will actually have a little bit of spoilers for part 2. I won't say anything too specific, but I do want to mention some things which could be considered spoilers. I just want to say I've been loving the story that they've had for Jay in part 2, mainly because he actually shows up in more than one episode. And of course I want Jay to gain his memories back and have his goodness healed as soon as possible. On one hand, I've been enjoying Jay's story so much that I wouldn't mind having him as Rogue in one more season to develop this story even further. But on the other hand, if Jay does get his memories back and his goodness is healed in season 3, I would also be glad with that. So I've been thinking, how could the ninja possibly fix this? How could they fix Jay's goodness and memory? And there's only one possible solution that comes to mind at this moment. For starters, we don't even know how he lost his memories. We know how his goodness was shattered, but we don't know how he lost his memories. So we don't know how to undo that, but the only possible solution for that I can think of currently is Ninjago. In part 2, we see new Ninjago again, and it's bigger, therefore also stronger. So what if the ninja actually used wish magic to fix Jay's memories and goodness? I mean, it's the only solution that I can currently think of. I also wanted to bring up a little theory that I have in my head. Do you remember in season 2 of the original show when Nia was corrupted by the Overlord and she did some form of dark spinjitzu? What if that form of spinjitzu was actually shatter spin? Because shatter spin is red and that spinjitzu was red, and we know that you have to shatter your goodness to do shatter spin, and she technically had her goodness shattered in that scene, so what if that was just a form of shatter spin? Oh well, we'll just have to wait and see how things play out at the end of part 2, and hopefully LEGO will finally learn their lesson and no more episodes will be leaked so soon. One can only dream.